hopefully I won't have tech problems tonight.
Not spooky, just can't hear them.
Yeah.
Well, he put too many V's in
welcome to the Halloween Spooktacular.
Not spooky. Not spooky, just can't hear them.
Yeah.
We were talking about all sorts of spooky things whilst the theme was playing, and not spooky. Thanking Voodoo Media for it, and how, I find it funny, just, I go to all the effort of making a new theme tune, and Voodoo Media's like, I'm going to make them a video intro with the old theme tune. But he had no way I was doing it, because I was trying to leave it a surprise, but I should have just announced, it's like, guys, I'm going to do it, I'm going to make a theme tune, it's going to be great. Yeah. And Hemi's going to sing in the theme tune, or at least say hello and welcome to Fortean Words.
It's a lot more professional than the previous one, more slick.
Oh yeah, I mean we're brought to you by. Are we brought to you by JML or Safe Space?
Are we brought to you by the Most Haunted?
Oh, we're brought to you by Durex, keeping the ghosts at bay with extra safe. Durex.
Okay then. So, are we ready for the Halloween?
Surprises.
Are we ready for the Halloween 3 days early spooktacular? When the veil is at its closest between the living and the dead.
Ooh, spooky pumpkin season. Ooh, spooky. Pumpkins. What is it about pumpkins and this time of year?
I don't know. What is it about pumpkins? My missus is allergic to them.
Really?
Yeah.
Jamaica.
She can't hollow out pumpkins. It just brings her up in like welts and sores and things like that.
Oh wow! Oh dear. I wonder what's in pumpkins. Which could, apparently pumpkin seeds are anti-parasitic. They if you eat pumpkins,
a parasite, I bet.
No. But maybe it's that's why it's triggering an allergic reaction in her. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, most women use cucumbers.
Yeah.
But
she won't be using that for anyway, I'll tell you, pumpkins. Because white girls supposed to love pumpkin spice latte or something, aren't they?
You know what? I found out pumpkin spice does not contain any pumpkin in it. It's cinnamon.
Oh, okay.
Someone in the chat tell me what the recipe is for pumpkin spice, but as far as I know, it's cinnamon and sugar, which is just like, well, everyone likes cinnamon and sugar. The only way you can make it better... Oh, speaking of which, speculoos, which is known as Biscoff in this country, is cinnamon and nutmeg and sugar.
Yeah, pumpkin spice is a delicious blend of cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger and cloves to create a delicate, subtle spice.
And funny enough, because, I mean, if you've been certain corners of the internet, the how fashion at the moment is anti-parasitics, and they talk about all these things like nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, black
Go to ForteanWords.com and buy your anti-parasitics.
Yep, get your Fortean Words pumpkin spice anti-parasitic colon cleanse. You can get it now.
Fortean Words, because taking the piss is half the battle.
Remember, if you're not laughing, then you're a faggot.
Yeah.
The other half is violence.
Are we going to kick off, or do we have some more?
Oh, the other half of the battle is violence and Fed posting.
Yeah.
I'm contributing.
Cool.
This is the show.
This is the show.
Oh, yes. Actually, I do have some content to get us started off with because you guys got the real content, so I've got a spooky thought for the day. Now, Fraser's not here, but he says, "Oh, that's Descartes," and it's like, "Oh, well, the guy says je pense donc je suis," which in English is "I think, therefore I am." So I've been bothered by this question recently of who am I? And it's one of these questions you should ask yourself. And it's not your name, it's not your age, it's not what you do. Those are your experiences and the name's what's given to you. It's not your body, because when your body's died, people will be like, they're not just going to go to your remains and go, yep, that's
but L. Ron
him.
Hubbard still hasn't come back yet, though, has he?
Oh, okay. But, so the thing is, what you are, who you be is something that's not your body and it's not your name, but it's definitely there, and I don't know how to define it. But there was something spooky about that, and what was my spooky thought for the day? Come on. It's not who you are, it's not who you is. Ghosts? Ghosts that? My spooky thought for the day is I don't know who I am, and I don't think anybody knows who they are, and yet we just carry on living even so. How about that then?
How's about that then?
How's about that then?
Basically defined by the level of neurotransmitters that happen to be swimming around your brain and body at any one time.
Oh, actually, no, I do have something spooky, right? So, going to Descartes with the whole.
Did anyone see on the Hollywood on the? Oh yeah, I forgot to say happy Hallowicked to all our Juggalo fans.
Hallowicked. Oh, okay.
Did anyone see Spacey Tracy's? He's just going to go and put that on his Twitter. Happy Hallowicked. Spacey Tracy. It was Hell Fraser, and it was Fraser. With
that's where I saw it. Yeah, I thought that was very, very good. I enjoyed that. So here's the thing: if I think, therefore I am, which is probably the closest I can get to who I am, right? When you're asleep or when you're unconscious, you're not thinking, right? So, are you? You're not am then, are you? Oh, sorry, I know that sounds a bit funny saying you're not.
Or are you your purest self of it?
But no, because you're not. So, but are you? But is that? I'm basically saying that. So when you go to sleep and you wake up the next day, people still say, "Oh yeah, it's you." But then we have that thing of like. Trigger's broom, where
peas aren't they brilliant?
Basically, your entire body replaces every 10 years or so. So it's a different body.
Cheese? Do you like peas?
You'll love cheesy peas. But in other words, is it like every day when you wake up? Are you a different man? Are you still the same? Is there a continuity that's going on there? Can anyone prove this?
Abstract thought, isn't it brilliant?
Well, there certainly isn't. If you're in a Star Trek away team and you're beamed onto a planet, is that still
and
you?
You're wearing a red shirt.
Yeah.
Because I heard the way that works is it scans you, creates a copy on the planet or wherever you're supposed to be beamed, and then it kills the original copy. Because they don't just we're going to create more than one copy unless it's that two-fix episode.
Are you saying that The Prestige is a prequel to Star Trek?
Oh, what's that?
Basically, yeah. It's with Wolverine, isn't it? And Batman in it.
It's Wolverine, Batman, and David Bowie.
Oh, okay. David Bowie was in Labyrinth. I'd be mean to watch that again.
David Bowie played Tesla.
Oh, that film, yeah. I heard he was playing Tesla in a movie. I didn't know it was called Prestige.
Yeah.
Well, there's my spooky thought for the day. Are you now? Is this the only you? And then you got this memories of you from yesterday, but they're memories. They're not you. And the you of the future is not actually you. You just have faith it will be. What if you actually die every time you sleep?
A whole new person is every 5 years.
Yeah, 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so physically...
Rob Grant was going to do a sitcom based on that fact.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, physically, you're a new body every 10 years, but people still recognise you as you. So there's definitely a spiritual aspect to it, which is unchanging, even if your body does change. But that's the spooky thought for the day. That's it. That's all I got. Thanks for listening. Bye.
That's the show. We're all done. Everybody's.
This is the show.
What's your spooky thought for the day? The fact that you can't remember your spooky thought for the day. That is the spooky thought.
No, the spooky thought for the day was the thing. Like when you go to sleep, you're no longer thinking, no longer is. Therefore, when you come, is it a facsimile or is it like very similar? For all I know, it could be like. I don't want to get into the issue of souls and such.
You are thinking though, aren't you? I bet.
Oh, well, I definitely was thinking when I was asleep last night. When I had some good dreams, but what about like the time when I wasn't dreaming?
Did they involve that chinky bird that used to be on CITV?
No, funny enough, I was a knight, but I wasn't like going through a real world. Well, I say it was an artificial world. Like there was these different biomes, and we're going through a desert, and then we're crawling down or rappelling down
basically did Westworld in your dreams. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and then we went down this wall, and there was like a almost like a foggy barrier, and underneath it was just like, oh yeah, this is the Europe biome, and it was green trees and pleasant.
Then you went to school naked.
No, actually, funny enough, then I had a dream where I was in a lorry and there was 2 students in the front. They were nervous about passing their test, and I was just laying down on the bed, just like I don't have to do this. I can relax. I've passed. I'm a lorry driver now.
And you are.
Yeah.
I had a dream that I ate a giant marshmallow. When I woke up, my pillow was still there because it would have been physically impossible to eat it.
Oh, the impossible Weetabix.
The impossible Weetabix.
Funny enough, I had a dream about eating my pillow, except it was this guard's hand, and I was biting it. And then I woke up, and I was just like, "Oh, the poor pillow! It doesn't deserve that sort of treatment. What has it ever done to me?" And then I was apologising to my pillow, and then you know, sort of when you're half awake and your logic doesn't really work. And then when I woke up fully, I was just like, "Why am I apologising to my pillow? It's an inanimate object."
Well, if you were biting the pillow, were you not raped by a succubus?
I doubt it.
A male succubus.
That's called an incubus.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Incubus, I mean, yeah. Or pegged by a succubus.
My dreams
by Ray's getting in because obviously Jaff's got the night off, but he says Hobbit often bites his pillow.
Yeah, I was surprised that would probably wind up Jaff with saying like, "Oh, Hobbit's admitted he's a pillow biter." Yeah, clip that, you bastards. Davey's pillow biters.
We're becoming more diverse, aren't we? So it's fine. It's the law now. So
yeah.
Got no problem with that.
Got to have equal representation, etc.
But you bite that pillow, you go for it.
Yeah. Show that pillow's boss.
Yeah.
It takes all kinds of people now, doesn't it?
Yep, certainly does.
Yeah, I've come out as a black disabled lesbian to, keep the diversity.
Have you heard about the lesbians that have been cajoled into having sex with the trannies because they don't want to appear transphobic? Did you see that stuff?
Oh, I saw something about that. Yeah, on a sort of title of the podcast. I haven't watched it yet, but yeah.
So you're telling me if I chap a woman and she says, "Oh no, thanks, I'm lesbian," I was like, "Did you just assume my gender, you turf?"
Yeah.
And then she has to have sex with me.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like a magic spell. Open sesame. It's the modern day open sesame.
You can probably do it to straight girls as well. You can probably shame them into being into admitting they're homophobic.
I'm not sure this is the basis of a healthy relationship.
I don't think it is either.
No.
I mean, what gets me is why are transgender people calling the shots now? I mean, there can't be that many of them.
They're running the insane asylum.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a spooky story.
Yeah.
That spooky.
Yeah.
Right,
I'll tell you what else is spooky. Australia.
No, that's just weird.
Yep.
It's just a totalitarian dystopia.
I get spooked whenever I see an Australian or Jacinda Ardern, and just like, my God, human horse hybrid experiments have been going on longer than we think. Chimeras are real, people. Look at Jacinda Ardern and tell me that is 100% Homo sapiens. I dare you.
Oh, hang on. Wait, the Mad Fraz is puking his guts up, so he can't make it tonight. So get well soon from the team.
Is it pea soup?
Oh, yeah.
Is it pea soup and is his head spinning round?
Yeah.
Is there carrot chunks in it?
Yeah. Pavement pizza.
Even if you don't eat it.
Yeah, isn't it weird? It's like, there's always bits of sweet corn in your poo, and there's always carrot chunks in the chunks. How does that work?
Yeah.
I think that the sweet corn has a strong cellulose wall which can't be broken down by the human body.
Yeah, it's indigestible.
Right, are we ready for some spooky stories then, are we?
Let's do it.
All this talking, I'll shit myself.
Yeah. Actually,
I did.
Like kick off with a spooky story. Yeah.
Go on then.
I had the spooky thought for the day.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so anyway, all right then.
Don't go to sleep tonight. That may be you only get like 1 day each.
What I was gonna tell the tale, the terrifying tale of Jill Dando's haunted dildo. It's before the 9 o'clock watershed, so I'll save that one for another time. Yeah.
Does Barry Scott know about this?
Barry George.
Jill Dando's haunted dando.
Scaramouche. Did he kill the Jill Dando?
Is Barry George a descendant of Sir Joseph Paxton?
Yeah, he's just a retard who didn't do it, but it's so thick they stitched him up. But anyway, okay. So no, basically though, if you tell Jill Dando's haunted dildo to do something, then it'll do it. So that's how it works. So haunted dildo.
Jill Dando's haunted dildo, my ass.
Yep, beat me to it.
That's the
idea.
I'm sorry.
Haunted
Don't say
dildo, my
that
ass.
the haunted dildo. Otherwise, it'd be like the necklace. Otherwise, it'd be like the necklace from Rent a Ghost.
Do
you remember the one where Mr. Meeker said, "I want to get 40 winks on the train"? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Oh dear, the kids don't get that one, Ian. That one fell flat.
Well, I've only got vague remembrance of the program. There was a guy wasn't there a guy in a fool outfit, and a woman off Coronation Street, Coronation Street.
Timothy Claypole, and there was
Gail's mother from Coronation Street. Yeah.
Was there a wizard in it? And then like the wizard was like confused by modern devices, and it's like saying, "Oh, it's oh yes, sir, I'm getting a call on my telling bone." That's what you call a telephone.
I don't remember that.
No,
I just remember, no, because the Meekers next door, they had this magical wishing necklace, and Mr. Meeker said, "I'm going to get 40 winks on the train," so he kept winking while he was on the train. He was getting slapped and all sorts.
That does ring a bell, actually.
Anyway.
That's one of the few bits I remember. And obviously, don't go into the cellar because that's where Duncan the Dragon lived, wasn't it?
Anyway, all right then. What we'll do, let's get into a tale, and let's do a spooky tale. Yeah, for Halloween. About time. So, all right then. We all know the dangers fucking about with Ouija boards, and how fucking stupid it is to mess around with them.
Yeah.
Only a complete fucking idiot would use one, so it's not big, and it's not clever.
Yeah.
Following tale comes from a guy known as Tom, who thought it was a good idea to try and contact the dead. So let's see what he said. My friends and I were in high school, and we came across a Ouija board in Toys R Us. We wanted to try it out to see if it really worked. There were 3 of us in the basement and with the board on the floor, and we began asking the usual questions you might see in any movie. Hello, we greeted, and the planchette slowly began to move, and I accused my friends of pushing it. My friends both let go, and I felt the planchette was moving on its own. almost as if a magnet was pulling it from underneath the board. "How many people are here?" we asked. "4," the board answered, even though there are only 3 of us. We then continued to ask, "Are you alive?" The planchette moved to no. "Are you nice?" "No," answered the board. Remember, at this point, the air felt heavier and my heart began to beat faster. "What is your name?" My friend Jess asked. The pointer began to move to one letter, then another, beginning to spell out the name of an evil entity I had previously heard of. However, as it was spelling the name, I gasped the name and said it out loud. As I did this, the planchette stopped dead in its tracks, and a millipede crawled from under my bed, ran over the board and underneath the door. My friend screamed, and we quickly put the board back in its box. Didn't quite know what to do with the board because we had heard that there was no good way to dispose of it, and burning it could make it worse.
Did they do the whole "get in the box"? I don't want to go in the box. Get in the box. I don't want to go in the box. Did they do that?
Yeah.
Did they?
Rob Brydon doing his man in a box voice. Yeah.
Actually, I was like, I'm showing my age even more. Then I was thinking like the Lord Charles bit.
Right, okay. You are. You must be older than me. So anyway, back to the story.
A lot of people have said that before. You think?
Yeah, I think I'm young though. I'm old. I'm young really in terms. I'm young. I'm a young old person. So I'm
young.
I'm an old young person.
I'm old in age, but I can hang out with the kids. Of course, so
yeah.
You're down with the youth.
I've been into trouble. I've got into trouble for that.
I think Lord Charles is still alive, but his puppeteer is dead. Is that right?
Anyway, okay. Anyway, so back to the story. Anyway, so we stored the Ouija board in the back of my garage, which at the time was a separate building to my house. That night, we didn't think of much else of what had happened. However, we were still a little freaked out. I remember sleeping with my grandmother's rosemary beads by my bed, even though I am not religious. It's funny how stuff like that still works. The next day, when I woke up,
by mistake, didn't he?
No, yeah,
rosemary and thyme beads.
Yeah.
In fact, if I ever have a sex change, I'm going to call myself Rosemary Beads.
Rosemary Beads.
Well, the next story is Jill Dando's anal beads. Anyway, the next day when I woke up, my mum called me from outside. There was a decapitated baby rabbit left just inches from our porch steps.
That's grim.
Hey, this is what happens when you do Ouija boards. I can tell you that this is the first time anything like this had happened, as at the time I lived close to a city, so wild animals never hung around. The following week I remember getting really ill to the point where I had a high temperature and I couldn't get out of bed for days. The illness slowly got better, but lasted for weeks. My friends, however, were fine. From then on, not much else happened.
It turned me into a newt. I got better.
What I don't understand, how do they know the rabbit was decaffeinated?
My
dad was strangled. It had been strangled by Jill Dando's cock ring. So let's have Then, not much
an entire emporium. Was this a side hustle she had?
Yeah.
Jill Dando's sex shop.
Yeah, she's got the whole lot, hasn't she? Anyway, from then on, not much else happened. However, when my dogs went downstairs, they would end up shaking and run upstairs right away. If I had any guests stay in the basement, they would always get creeped out, especially by the dark hallway at the back. And almost everyone reported having nightmares each night they stayed in the basement. One time, my little sister stayed in the basement, and she said she had a horrible nightmare, and when she woke up, the closet door was opened, and there was an old woman sitting there. It had been Jill Dando. Thinking about something like this happening still freaks my entire family out to this very day. Even had one of those old walkie-talkies from the 80s, and one day we turned it on in the basement. There was an angry male voice swearing and screaming for a long time. The screaming wasn't directed at anyone. It was just meaningless, vulgar phrases. It's been about 10 years now, and I no longer live in that house. Since then, I have had no contact with the owners of the house. I do not know whether this stuff still goes on. I'm glad I don't live there anymore. And relax. So yeah, don't mess about with Ouija boards, eh?
I've never been tempted to do Ouija before. My dad has done it, and he said, "Oh, it was boring." So I decided to just for a bit of fun, I was going to make the planchette. Because that sounds like a French word. He decided to make it move around and spell out stuff and like, "Oh, I'm bad demon. My name's Beelzebub or something." And I don't remember what he did. He didn't tell me all the details. But then I said to him, "What makes you like think like oh yeah, I'm doing this consciously? But what inspired you to do that? What if that wasn't your free will?"
Yeah. He said it was his free will.
Yeah, he says, "Oh, I was going to make it move around just for shits and giggles and freak them out." Because apparently his friends all did get freaked out. And he says they were all on the marijuana at the time. I was like, except for him, because he says when he does it, then he can't remember anything and he goes into a weird trance. So he just doesn't smoke. But so you're the only one that's sober there, and you're doing it, and yet I think he was like the only one that was like sensitive and got like picked up, and it's got to use people's hands to move it. It doesn't. The planchette does not just move about of its own will.
He thought he was pushing it. He thought, "Oh, I'll prank them here. I'll push it," but it was going to go. It was going to go that way anyway. So
he thought he was playing a trick on them, but the thing is, he was the one getting tricked.
Exactly. Yeah. He had egg on his face. So
yeah.
This is a spooky. Sorry, this is a spooky fact about Ouija boards. They were originally I think they are owned by
Hasbro.
The name is owned by Hasbro. Yeah, and originally I think they were just mass produced as a silly game, basically.
Was in I think last year. I think it was last year. Even the pound shop was selling them. I think you can even Google this.
The vibrators, Poundland do vibrators as well, don't you?
That was Jill Dando selling the vibrator, but
the Jill Dando.
Yeah,
it's similar in a way to like tarot cards. Like, really, you should say, "Oh, they're just innocuous cards with like drawings on them," but it's the intention put behind them that can be malicious.
Yeah, I think the Poundland withdrew them for some reason, but I'm not sure. But it might be worth looking into that. I know they were selling a cheap one for Halloween that you could use. How
much was it?
And £1. It was shit. It wasn't very good. I got a good one. Mine was 20 quid, but mine's a nice Ouija board, which is nice wooden, nice finish, varnish, nicely.
You're talking about £20 vibrator.
No, that's
as Damien says, Watershed didn't last long, did it?
We're using Channel 5 rules.
Yeah.
Off-License said, "Has the guest ever done a twister board session? It shook me up." Who's doing the next tale then?
Go on then. I've got a really quick one for you.
Go on then.
Well, have you heard? There's an old urban legend about a man with a hooked hand. I'm sure you've heard this already. Who escaped from an asylum. He was a serial killer, and there's a couple on the road, and they hear about it on the radio that he's local, and they break down or something, and then the next morning they find that he tried to get in their car, and his hook had been left on the car door, or is even punctured the car door and left there. Quite a well-known one, but there's a certain.
Isn't it usually that they hear something outside and drive off, and then when he stops to get to let the girlfriend out of the car. The hook's hanging off the handle. You ever heard that one?
Yeah. There's kind of variations on it, but there's one retelling of it which has become legendary on Reddit and places like that. And I'd like to give you a word-for-word retelling of their account of the incident. So here goes. Man and girl go out to drive under moonlight. They stop at a side of road. He turned to his girl. Yep. He turned to his girl and say, "Baby, I love you very much." "What is it, honey?" "Our car is broken down. I think the engine is broken. I'll walk and get some more fuel." "Okay, I'll stay here and look after our stereo. There have been news reports of stereos being stolen." Good idea. Keep the doors locked no matter what. I love you, Sweaty.
Did Sandra Sampson write this story with a self-diagnosed herself? I self-diagnosed myself that the engine's broken. I'm going to get some more fuel.
Told in the style of a red Indian.
I've got, while we're talking about urban legends, I've got my urban legends books out. So, a lass someone at college knew was travelling in her boyfriend's car late at night through the New Forest when their car suddenly started spluttering and stalled. As they ran out of petrol in the middle, they'd run out of petrol in the middle of nowhere. At first, she thought it might be a ruse by a bloke to get a bit of rural slap and tickle, but the concern on his face soon scotched that. It was pitch black, and the only light they could see was coming from what looked like a mansion or hospital some miles away. Her boyfriend told her to lock the doors and wait while he went for help. Hours passed, still no sign of him. She was beginning to get very nervous. Still more time went by. Then, when she was startled by a horrendous banging on the back, then the top of the car. Before she could scream, the car was surrounded by police cars with lights flashing and sirens wailing. A voice over a loud hailer told her, "Get out of the car slowly, walk steadily towards the police line and don't look around." She did what she was told, but as she neared the police line, she couldn't stop herself from looking around to the car to see what was making the awful thumping noise, only to see an escaped psychopath banging her boyfriend's severed head on the car roof.
Yeah, I've heard that one. I think that's a kind of a variation on this same tale. But anyway, let me just finish it off because this is Shakespearean. So the guy left to get full for the car. After 2 hours, the girls say, "Where is my baby? He was supposed to be back now." Then the girl hear a scratching sound and voice say, "Let me in." The girl doesn't do it, and then after a while she goes to sleep. The next morning she wakes up and finds her boyfriend still not there. She gets out to check, and man door, hand hook, car door. That's it.
Hook, car door, handle. She self-diagnosed herself, did she?
Yeah. Either someone whose English wasn't their first language, or they were retarded.
It got hypnotised to fart against her will.
Hypnotised to fart against her will, yeah.
It's Sandra Sampson. It's definitely Sandra Sampson.
If it was hook for hand, then it could be Candyman or Purple Aki.
Yeah, because when you first sort of describing it, it's like, this is going to be Candyman.
Remember, the Africans took Candyman from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't even have our own serial killers.
Mm.
Did we culturally appropriate Candyman?
No, they culturally appropriate Candyman from us.
Yeah.
It was from Liverpool originally.
Yeah, Liverpool Council Estate. That's where it's from. Yeah.
Terrible film.
But they decided to put it in the Chicago projects.
He was a local ice cream man or something.
Yeah.
I like the original film, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen the recent one. I don't think I'm going to bother.
It's supposed to be awful, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
The first one's the best. The third's quite good.
I watched the new Halloween film. Got to say, wasn't that impressed by it.
Yeah. Well, what do you expect? People getting killed.
It was very transphobic and racist and homophobic, from what I heard.
there's also a lot of the problem with Michael Myers is now he's like Poundland Jason Voorhees now, but like you're supposed to keep the two distinct, but now he can literally rise from the dead. Before he used to kind of sneak off between films, but now he just rises from the dead right in front of you and then kills everybody magically.
Well, some of the films, he's part of a cult, isn't he? He's in the Thorn trilogy.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. He's supernatural then.
That was a weird stage, but he was still human, wasn't he? He was human, but he was just brought about by a magical ritual, weren't he?
Yeah, I like the fact that the mask prop was a William Shatner mask, apparently.
Yeah.
Just bought.
Yes, did you not know this, Hobbit? It's a William Shatner mask.
Cool.
That they painted white.
It's not that spooky. I watched Hudson Hawk today. That was a weird film. It's like it's cartoon, but it's violent and there's blood. And it's the story of this cat burglar who just wants a cup of coffee, but everyone like keeps assassinating like his mugs of coffee or poisoning it.
Yeah.
They're like,
I had the platform game of that on my Amstrad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you steal Leonardo da Vinci's sketchbook?
I think there's something to do with that, but yeah, it was terrible. I didn't get very far.
Halloween 3 doesn't have Michael Myers at all, does it? It's a different story altogether.
Yeah, well, the first Friday the 13th doesn't have Jason in it.
No, I thought
Pamela.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't have the hockey mask, does it?
It's his mum killing people.
Who's the guy?
I actually watched a documentary. It was a documentary made on the 30th anniversary of Jason. So, but they were saying that they come up with the hockey mask because basically they were trying to do like the like horror face, but it just nothing was working. So they just cut the face off and then put the hockey mask on instead.
Because he had a bag over his head originally, wasn't it?
Yeah, but apparently the reason they had to get rid of the bag was because they used tape to keep because the eye hole kept moving around, so they had to use tape to keep it shut. And then the bloke ended up with burns above and below his eye where the tape was.
Yeah. But
So, yeah, there you go. That was a quick one there.
Spooky story.
Spooky case of engine broken. I'm going to go get some petrol.
There is the tale, the similar tale of the guy that picks up the hitchhiker. Probably you must know it. The hitchhiker picks up the hitchhiker and then has the hitchhiker in the back seat of his car, man or woman, whichever you prefer. But then during this journey, looks back to speak to the hitchhiker, and they've gone. They've disappeared.
Yeah, because there's another wrinkle to that, isn't there? Where we're leaving the coat behind, and then he takes the coat back, and the mum goes, "Well, she died on the A1 a year ago."
Yeah, and then
me and Hobbit read a weird one. Do you remember this one, Hobbit? Was it last year or the year before? Spooky Stories.
I think it was the year before. Yeah,
where a bus driver picks up a full apparition with broken down car and everything, and he gives the bloke a lift to the petrol station, and then he vanishes. Like the car and everything. It's like a full scene apparition. It was a bit.
But that was it. He said, "Oh, you're going to a 70s fancy dress party?" Because you see, flared trousers and everything. And then afterwards, they investigated where they picked him up from, and they found like a car rolled down there years ago. So that actually, the ghost helped them solve like a missing body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very
they've been
similar to another. Sorry, I was going to say that's sorry. Yeah, I was going to say that's quite similar to another story. I noted down actually about the hitchhiker. Do you want me to quickly run through that one since we're on the subject?
Go on then.
Just before you do, I'll say they've been doing roadworks in Swindon, and they've uncovered a dead body, and nobody cares because it's probably from Swindon. Woo!
Swindonian.
Some Swindonian's been dead for many years, and they're not sure who it is, and it's going to be difficult to identify because of the advanced state of decomposition. Ooh.
Also, there was an earthquake in Swindon, and several buildings fell down. Yeah, caused £15 worth of damage.
Hey, they
no, you haven't done that one right, Ian. It's £15 worth of
That's with improvements.
Oh, right, okay, improvements. Okay.
Anti-Swindonian action.
You're not going to stand for this anti-Swindonian sentiment.
I'm not. They also found Sargon's political career buried with that.
What's it? The roadworks as well. It's just like, hey, it's Sargon's career. Yeah. Look, it's all the milkshakes and fish.
Unused rape threats.
Sargon.
Sargon. What are we going to do here?
When's he next going to put something on Twitter of him fucking a tranny up the arse? Oh, spooky!
Oh, gross.
When's he next going to say... Oh, hang on, we're still before watching. I'm not going to say what he said to neon-Nazis. Yeah.
Anyway, Dom, your thing about the thing.
Yeah. Well, there's another of these hitchhiker stories in the Blackwall Tunnel. A lot of, several of my girlfriends have mentioned something about throwing a sausage in the Blackwall Tunnel.
Dom, wait there. I hear your girlfriend is going to North America on holiday.
Alaska?
I thought she would have told you already.
Didn't you do
anyway,
that
back to the story.
Didn't you do that same joke last week?
I did.
Yeah.
You weren't paying attention last time, whereas this time at work. Anyway, carry on. You were.
He's just about paying attention.
Yeah.
So there was a motorcyclist was entering the Blackwall Tunnel, and he spotted a hitchhiker trying to catch a lift, and he picked up the man. Passenger got on the back of his bike and gave him an address where he wanted to go.
If you've ever been in the Blackwall Tunnel, where the fuck is there to pick up and drop off somebody?
Yeah, there isn't these days.
Exactly.
Well, this was early 1972 apparently, so there may have been somewhere back then.
Okay, it might have been.
But so he stopped and picked up the man, and he gave him an address where he wanted to go in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex, and then when the motorcyclist reached the other end of the tunnel, he turned around and realised his passenger had simply disappeared.
Was it the Master Butcher of Leigh-on-Sea? More aliases than Klaus Barbie?
Possibly.
No one got that one. I can't.
No.
Sheriff Fatman by Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
From East London, aren't they? South East London.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he'd worried that the hitchhiker had fallen off the back of the bike, and he turned to look. There was no one in the road. He basically vanished into thin air. So he was quite troubled, and he decided to visit the address in Leigh-on-Sea that the hitchhiker had given him. And he thought maybe the man had got home by other means somehow. When he got there, he was told something that would have sent a bolt of ice down his spine. The passenger had died a few years previously in an accident in the Blackwall Tunnel. And apparently his experience turned out to be one of many apparent sightings of the Spectre. And there was another in 1994, published in the Fortean Times, claiming that the writer and his wife had rushed outside the house he was staying in on Blackwall Lane in 1960 when they heard an accident by the tunnel. They saw a motorcyclist had been killed. At 2 a.m. they heard the sound of the exact same accident, but upon investigation found nothing outside. So it could be like there's this crash repeating over and over again. So he's fallen off, the guy who picked him up, he fell off the back of the motorcycle and died again. So he's like doomed to die over and over and over again.
I remember watching
stuck in limbo.
I remember watching like Arthur C. Clarke's like Mysterious World or something like that. The one where the guy picked up a mysterious hitchhiker and they get to the cemetery. She goes, "Oh, you can just drop me off here," and then she disappeared out the car, completely vanished, and the bloke was absolutely shitting it.
P. Andre's got spooked. What are you on about?
Peter Andre got spooked.
He was driving a transit van. He was driving a transit van, wasn't he? That guy, if I remember rightly.
No, it weren't Roy Whiting.
There's various variations on that. Even Jeff, the talking mongoose, used to get on the bus in the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
And there's a film with Orson Welles, a short film. I don't know if you can be bothered to watch it, but in Ireland he has a similar experience of picking up a hitcher who turns out to be dead. So takes them back to their place, and when he leave their coat with him, and when he goes to return the coat, finds out the person who left the coat is now dead.
Ooh.
The guy wanking, and a hot cup of tea appears by the side of his bed when he's finished. That
whose turn is it for a story now? Then
it's your turn, isn't it?
Oh, go on, I'll do this one. In the early this is from Bristol, I think. In the early 1900s, a fine house in the best residential part of Bristol was reputed to be haunted by a horrible, pale-faced servant girl. She was said to have been the natural daughter of a wealthy man who owned the house some 50 years earlier. A half-witted hunchback creature, she always wore a cheap pink dress and lived a miserable life. Half-starved and often beaten until the end, she drowned herself in a pool in the garden. A widowed colonel's wife and her 3 daughters took a long lease of the house in the early part of this century and settled comfortably into the house and were unable to obtain a housemaid for several weeks. Yet soon after they moved in, one of the daughters passed on the stairs, a young girl in a pink dress, busily sweeping with a brush and pan as if her very life depended upon it. Thinking that her mother must have obtained a temporary maid, the daughter gave the girl no more than a glance, but the impression was that she obtained was distinctly unfavourable. The girl appeared to be untidy and sluttish. Her cap was soiled and askew, and she was practically humpbacked, and she had such a white, unhealthy face. The ghost girl was next seen by another daughter of the colonel's widow. This time she seemed to be aware of the daughter's presence and slithered down the stairs, grinning hideously over her shoulder as she closed the door behind her. Montague Summers, that remarkable student of ghosts, witchcraft and vampires, told me that when he visited the house, he also saw a most repulsive-looking and dishevelled little maid in a dirty pink frock near the front door. The creature grinned, then slipped away through a red baize door at the back of the hall. A week later, one of the colonel's daughters, alone in the house at the time, went down to the basement to fetch some hot water, and was astonished when she pushed the kitchen door open to see the girl in the pink dress apparently busy at the kitchen range with her back towards the door. "What on earth are you doing here?" the daughter of the house asked. The figure swung round, an impudent leer on her white face, without a word of explanation, scuttled off into an adjoining room from which there was no other exit. At last, the widow's daughter thought, "I'll catch you face to face." But the scullery was empty, and of the mysterious girl in the pink dress there was no sign. Suddenly frightened, she turned and ran upstairs, pausing to recover breath on the landing, when, to her horror, she saw, grinning at her through the landing window, 30 feet from the ground, the white face of the ghostly housemaid she had left a moment before in the kitchen. "How I got out of the house I don't know," she told Montague Summers, but she was found in the porch in a dead faint, and was so ill afterwards that she went to Brighton to recover, which took several months. By then her mother and sisters had left the house and found another without a ghost. Montague Summers told me that the family who moved in after the colonel's widow stayed less than a month, and the next tenants left abruptly within an even shorter time. As stories of the ghost spread, the house stood empty, and as Summers was fond of saying, he was sure it would always be empty except for the ghost maid.
Crikey.
That's a nice little story, isn't it?
Yeah. And that house is probably worth a few quid now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Aleister Crowley, he died penniless in a hostel in Hastings. What was the name of that hostel? Does anyone know?
YMCA?
Oh,
I didn't think it was a hostel. I thought it was an old people's home.
Was it? Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if he had enough money for it. I saw a couple of things. Now, I didn't mention it on Tuesday because I said it's a bit spooky, right? So, I got this theory that a good cover for an international assassin is being a world-famous actor. So, it gives them plausible deniability because, I'd never kill someone. I'm just a famous actor. They must be confused. And...
I mean, like Alec
They
Baldwin.
get combat training, like Alec Baldwin. They have a plausible alibi for travel, like I had to be in Morocco.
Didn't that woman he shot? Didn't she have information that would lead to the arrest and imprisonment of Hillary Clinton?
Well, actually, you say that, but her husband was on the prosecuting lawyer team, which was investigating Hillary Clinton's emails. But then I find here's the other
person, then, didn't they? They should have shot her husband.
Well, here's the other weird thing as well, right? She was born in Murmansk in Russia in 1982. If 1982 is the year The Hunt for Red October is released, which is about this nuclear submarine which left Murmansk in 1982. So, and Alec Baldwin was in The Hunt for Red October. So I'm thinking to myself like he definitely assassinated her. That was definitely like assassin, and then also injured the director as well because in for a penny, in for a pound, and just got away with it, and nobody cares because it's like, oh, LOL, it was just an accident, and she gave me the weapon. She should have known better, the dumb bitch. And then there's all these videos showing like, see, she's dumb. Because...
I saw earlier that the sheriff still hasn't worked out how the bullets got onto the shit because the set was an absolute fucking mess. There was bullets everywhere, mixed up bullets in fucking bum bags. I think this one might actually be an accident, Hobbit.
If I didn't know any better, I would say that was to create a plausible deniability. Like, it was such a chaotic. Like, imagine like you got broken into somebody's house to kill them, but then you nick some stuff because otherwise it's like, it was just a robbery attempt that turned bad. As opposed to like, no, they broken into to murder somebody.
Yeah, but have you seen that picture of that woman trying to teach someone how to shoot a rifle?
Yeah, it's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, you change your fucking mind. Unless
that's the thing, though.
That's
the thing. I suspect all of that stuff is there just to sort of say, like, see, she's fucking shit, isn't she? She's crap. She's rubbish.
Yeah.
So, but that's just a bit spooky, you know.
She's just as good as any man that could do that job.
It's all a bit spooky dooky. I think it's a bit But anyway, that's all I have to say about that for now.
Ooh. Good job, 47. The money has been dispensed to your account.
That's it.
Someone said in chat.
And plus, you made it look like the actor did it. You didn't even do it yourself, 47. Superb work.
Yeah.
The truth will come out in time.
So
wasn't that filmed in Mexico?
I don't actually know. I don't know where it was filmed, actually.
Yeah, because I was thinking there'd be a lot of cartel bullets lying around, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe we can get to see the actual footage as well on the dark web. I'm sure they can leak it.
Not to be confused with the darky web.
Christian Bale shouting at that fucking bloke on stage. La-di-da! What are you doing?
Yeah. Anyway, we ready for another tale?
Let's go for it.
Or shall we say, has anyone got any real life experiences to tell, rather than urban myths?
Well, there was my apparition, and then...
Apparition?
Yeah. I was about 14 years old. I saw a dark apparition in the corner of my room and felt absolutely terrified of it. And even when I turned on all the lights in my room, I still felt the presence was there. And I had this like feeling that if I just had the window open, it would go out of the window and leave me alone. In addition to that, there's been 2 times when I've been with someone, they've seen a ghost, I haven't, and I believe them enough. But it's strange. It's like I've seen something myself, so I don't discount it doesn't exist. But
what did the apparition look like you saw then? When you saw the apparition in your room, what
it was just like it's an absence of light. Imagine you've got no lights in your room and it's all dark and shadows, but just imagine there's this one bit which is blacker than black, and it's an unnaturally dark area. Very strange.
Sort of circular shaped, or what? What kind of?
It was indistinct, and it was, to be honest, it's not something I wanted to look at in great detail because I felt if I did, then I'd be done for. I'm not sure. I felt in genuine peril. Like, how
big was it?
I would say it was about man-sized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you turned the lights on, what happened then? Did it disappear, or what? You turned the lights on, and what happened? Did you get
There was a cup of tea by your bed.
No, there wasn't, and it was cold. When the lights
your mum was home.
When the lights were on, no, all my family was home at the time. When they turned all the lights on, I mean, I couldn't see it, but I still I knew it was there, and I didn't feel safe, and I don't know what it was. I really don't. To this day, I'm not sure what I saw or why I felt so fucking terrified, but it was. I haven't felt that sense of dread and terror, anything like any other. That was the most terrifying experience of my life, and I had some horrible experiences in my life, but don't need to talk about that. Yeah, and I don't know.
You still live in the same house?
No, I've moved since then.
Yeah. To this day. And you only experienced it that one time, not only the once.
It was a new build, but I think, and you think, oh, well, if it's a new build, then it's not a haunted house. But I will say that street, it was like, I'm not sure the cornerstone or laying ceremony, it was done 50 years before 2012. There was like, I remember in 2012, on December the 21st, there was like an actual party for the street saying like, oh, we're having a party because the street was first erected or laid down in December the 21st, 1962. Which you think to yourself, who wants to work on December the 21st? But no, they had a whole Freemason ceremony about it. Just like, this street is now erected on December the 21st, 1962.
Was it built on an old burial ground?
Did they bury the bodies? They didn't bury the bodies.
Well, no, it wouldn't have been a burial ground, but it was. There was a major battle of the Civil War at the time, and that's why they're saying you should be careful with the soil around, because due to the amount of horse corpses and stuff, you could get tetanus easily.
It could have been a horse apparition then.
In my room?
Yeah.
Oh,
you should have spoken. If it was a horse apparition, you should have spoken to it, shouldn't you? You should have said, "By the long face."
I didn't feel like talking with whatever this was.
I store that one for whenever a horse crops up. That one always comes out for whenever a horse.
I store that for whenever I look at Jacinda.
I used to have a missus. She was Scandinavian. Well, she looked like a horse. Like
oh right, I get it.
Yeah.
She going to North America for anyway.
Alaska.
Dorset,
yeah.
See, I'm quicker than dumb on that one, aren't I?
Jamaica, yeah.
There's got to be more place names we could shoehorn into that.
Yeah, we'll work on it.
Yeah.
I've got a spooky story of Americans with being confronted with the evils of the metric system, which is just a subversive plot.
I'm off to a country that was sold to the Americans for $1. No, my missus is off to a country that was sold to
Alaska.
The Americans for $1. Yeah.
So the teacher goes to the student and say, use a sentence with the word centimetre in it. Whoa. So the boy, thinking quickly, goes, oh, well, you see, my aunt was coming to meet us at the train station, so I was centimetre.
You know that one about the school quiz where the teacher said, can you do a noise that's heard on the farm? And little Johnny puts his hand up his head and says, get off that fucking tractor.
Anyway, well, I'll tell you what though. Myself, I was young though. This is a true story, and you will find out why. When I lived near a castle, and it was haunted by the so-called Grey Lady, and there was a door at the castle, and they say the rumor was if you knocked the door 5 times, then the Grey Lady would appear. So obviously, me and my friends, being as we were, one night we went and did that, but the Grey Lady didn't appear. So that's the paranormal experience I had. But I've got a spooky story when you're ready, unless anyone else has got any questions.
Nope.
Good. All right then.
Why do kamikaze pilots wear helmets?
Nobody knows. Woo!
Safety first.
Right. But anyway, so I've had my Twitter page, haven't I, for a while? If you've seen it, put some stuff on there. But I had a story which was sent to me by someone on there. A guy called Paul from Milton Keynes, and he gave me.
Now then, this was sent to me by a young man.
The following report. So anyway,
Paul from Milton Keynes. I think
Paul.
I know him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I know Paul. Everyone knows Paul from Milton Keynes.
Yeah. Ball sack. Yeah. Ball sack. So anyway. Anyway, this is what he said. It's a shorter story, but this is a bit weird, this one. He said this. This happened to my dad when he was a little kid. I think it messed him up emotionally, but he never admitted it. The story freaks me out just imagining it.
Old people were stoic, weren't they? They were very, very... Didn't matter what it was, but they'd fucking stiff up a lip, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they'd just get on with it. No matter what it was. But anyway, I'm pretty sure my dad was 10 years old and he was home alone for whatever reason. He was watching TV in the living room. It was the only TV in the house, and all of a sudden, the TV just shut itself off. So he got up and turned it back on. It was an old shitty TV, so it wasn't weird at all.
It was on the brink.
When he got back on the couch, it happened again. Got up once again and turned the TV back on. Again, it turned off. Repeated this process a couple more times before he started to look for the remote control.
Before he said,
looking for
to bed.
While really looking for the remote control, he walked over to check behind one of the couches and saw a man hiding in the corner holding the TV remote.
Whoa.
My dad described the man as having long, messy hair and a crazed look in his eyes. Gave my dad a smile, and my dad ran out the front door screaming like a little girl.
Did he say, now then, how's about that then?
Went to the neighbours who called the police. The man was still in the house when the police got there, so he was arrested.
You fucker.
My dad has since told me that he thought the man was either homeless, crazy, or a pedo. Either way, story is downright terrifying.
Ever, isn't it?
There you go. Nasty, eh?
Nasty but true. Our wants to know, has anyone seen an alien big cat? No. In a word, no.
Oh,
isn't there one on Google Maps? Is it Google Maps? There's a big cat on there or something?
Google it and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't lose the remote control, otherwise that might happen. Yeah.
Watch out for that trap door, because there's something down there.
There's
While we're talking about the, was it? I found one of these. There was one about. Okay, this is.
Trapdoors.
You ever read
amazing.
about
Yes, it is.
Clop Hill? You ever read about Clop Hill Church? Apparently, a lot of like really fucking satanic shit goes on there.
Yeah, I do know of this.
Yeah. So, that's
I was amazed about all that stuff about Highgate Cemetery. I mean, that's if you want to go back in our archives, it's Fortean Words on Anchor FM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Highgate. It's not about the chicken, is it?
No. That's,
oh, okay. Well, I've got a story about Highgate and a chicken. Anyway.
This one isn't, I thought it was Clop Hill, but it's not. It's so one evening, some 70 or 80 years ago, in the parish of Thundersley in Essex, the clergyman noticed, somewhat to his surprise, a curious game being played by children in the corner of the churchyard, in which they appeared to be running round a tombstone, chanting a kind of litany. 6 times they encircled the tomb, running from left to right against the course of the sun, and on the 7th suddenly broke up and ran away shrieking as if a fiend was pursuing them. When the game was over, the clergyman investigated and found that children had selected the oldest and ugliest tombstone, hidden away to the north of the churchyard, among the wilderness of weeds. Later, he approached a small boy who had been one of the dancers and questioned him. He was told that the purpose of this game was to discover which of them had the courage to encircle the great grave 7 times, and then put his ear to the ground and listen to the devil in the earth far below rattling his chains. In this strange game, the children reenacted in play the ancient and bloody rite of the graveyard sacrifices, for the devil they listened to under the earth was once the ghost guardian of the tombs.
Crikey.
Bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, we used to, because I'm weird, when we was kids, we used to hang around in a graveyard that was, like, right next to my school. And there was, like, Matilda's grave, which was, like, it was like a big marble above-ground thing. And that was when you were supposed to go down there at midnight and run around it 7 times, and then she'd awoke.
Say Candyman 5 times, and Candyman will appear.
Yeah.
Speaking of ghosts and graveyards, there's actually one my mum told me, which is quite interesting because she's not the sort. She hasn't got the imagination to make something up, and she's too nice to lie. But she was saying that she was hanging around with her cousin at a graveyard when she was a kid, and they saw basically a guy dressed in old World War II uniform putting flowers on a grave, and then he just disappeared. And she didn't say anything about it, but she asked her cousin, "Did you see that, and what did you see?" And her cousin described the same thing that she saw. And then about, when they were in her 50s, she asked her cousin about it again, and her cousin just teared up and wouldn't talk about it.
Ooh.
So yeah,
Strange.
I found the Clop Hill story I was going to talk about. So, no dream of churchyard exhumation could ever be as terrifying as the strange case of the ghouls of Clop Hill, Bedfordshire, which the author was asked to investigate on behalf of an independent television company in March 1963, and which was featured by the Associated Rediffusion Programme this week in the following day. Here in the burial ground of a ruined church which has been disused for 100 years, a visitor came upon a child playing with a skull, and upon making inquiries discovered that the skull had originally been found impaled upon an iron spike surrounded by the other bones of the skeleton. There were curious symbols inscribed on the wall which might have some ritual significance, but what was most disturbing was the fact that no less than 7 graves had been disturbed by the vandals, who had gone from one to the other, lifting heavy slabs of stone until they had discovered a tomb which could be entered. Finally, they disinterred the bones of Jenny Humberstone, the wife of an apothecary dead for 200 years, and arranged these in the grisly manner described just within the porch. The parish priest, who'd recently returned from Madagascar, where something like this might not have been out of place, nice, bit of casual racism there, was deeply distressed at both the desecration of the churchyard and the invasion of his personal privacy by hordes of newspaper reporters. A thirst for ghoulish details, yeah.
They're saying the case with the Ebola and stuff might be because they bury their dead, and then they every year or every 5 years or so they dig them up and they dance with them and have them for dinner, and it's just like because and then the White Devil says we're not allowed to do this because it's unsanitary.
Yeah.
So
the possibility of a hoax was at first considered and then discounted because of the tremendous physical efforts the Vandals had devoted to their attacks upon the graves. Heavy stone slabs, which would have required the efforts of 4 or 5 men to move them, had been dislodged from the altar tombs in frantic effort to find a body, indicating a frenzy of labour that only a maniac or fanatic would have expended. Finally, the arrangement of the bones themselves indicated something far more sinister: necromancy, the ancient form of communication with spirits of the dead. The rector then announced to the press that he proposed to reinter the bones in the original grave, but at the last minute decided against this and kept them elsewhere for the time being. That night the ghouls struck again, destroying still more of the tomb, but of course finding nothing. They made several further attempts on the following days, attacking and damaging no less than 3 other tombs before peace was finally restored to the churchyard. Any attempt to explain this mystery must allow for the possibility of a macabre and scholarly practical joke based upon certain ancient rites, similar to the primitive spiritualism of the witch doctor. It must also take into consideration the possibility that the later sacrileges were hoaxes, while the original one was a serious attempt to conjure up the spirits of the dead by means of a ritual that was then old when Christianity was young. Necromancy was forbidden by the canons of Edgar and the laws of Athelstan in the 10th and 11th centuries of our era, and in 1371 a wizard was arrested in Southwark for having in his possession the head of a dead man and the book of sorcery. The last vestige of this macabre magic was possibly the use of the hand of a dead man as a charm to make a household sleep the sleep of the dead by superstitious and idiotic burglars in the 19th century. Later reports suggest that the Clophill tomb robbery was by no means an isolated instance, that within recent years, on 2 occasions at least, there have been similar rituals in this churchyard at the time of the full moon. It's very strange that after all these centuries anyone could have revived the most terrifying of all ceremonies, and that of raising the spirits of the dead in the way practiced by savages in the very dawn of history. This throws into highlight the whole mystery of the human attitude to death beyond, and reminds all that the realm of ghosts has not yet come to an end.
Eerie.
Yeah,
Clopill's
supposed to be a pretty bad place to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
and
It's on a ley
Clophill,
line, I think, as well. It's on a ley line as well.
Yeah.
Well, that explains it. Where you get nexus points of ley lines, spooky stuff happens.
Yeah,
concentration of energy, maybe a portal, something like that. So,
Funny enough, ley lines is one of the reasons I believe in flat Earth, because I remember there was this Irish gobshite called Thomas Sheridan, and he says, there's no way ley lines are real because it doesn't take into account the curvature of the Earth. I was like, well, that means ley lines are real because there is no curvature, and the ley lines prove it. Because our ancestors didn't make these cathedrals and stuff for no good reason.
So are you saying ley lines are proof of a flat Earth?
I'm saying that people don't go to the great effort of putting nexus points, stone circles and cathedrals and pyramids and all that stuff if ley lines were a load of bollocks disproven by Globe.
You can still have a ley line on a curved Earth, though. The ley line can still be straight.
Yeah, how do people go to flat Earth conventions from all over the globe then, Hobbit?
Yeah, that is the question. Yeah.
And how many nexus points can you get for a Dogecoin?
There was a question I had about
Enough to buy a
like,
kettle. Have to buy a kettle.
So who's turn for a spoopy story then, is it?
Yeah.
Ian, you got any more spoopy stories?
Yeah, go on then. Let's have one then, because I'm getting some mail. So this one here is one that came through from someone called Susanna C. That's their name, and she's sent this to my site. So she said this as follows: I lived in my house since I was 2 months old. I live here with my 3 sisters, my mum, my dad, and our uncle. We first moved in. My aunt, my mum's younger sister, who believed she was a clairvoyant, said that the house was haunted. My parents thought this was ridiculous, but then weird things began happening. When I was a baby, before my 2 younger sisters were born, my older sister, Fuckerada, and I slept in what is now called the playroom on the 2nd floor. On several occasions, while both my parents were downstairs along with my sister, our cat, and me, they would hear through the baby monitor some of our toys going off. Every time my dad would go upstairs, as soon as he would reach the door of the playroom, the toys would stop. He thought it was the batteries dying, so he was constantly changing them out. One day this happened again, except the toy that was making the noise was one that didn't have batteries. You would have to push it across the floor to make it make a noise. But still, my dad walked upstairs and got to the room, and right as he opened the door, the noise stopped, and the toy was on the shelf where it was supposed to be.
Was it Jill Dando's dildo?
Jill Dando's sex toy.
Jill Dando's dildo, my ass.
Me and Hobbit have conclusively proved that Barry George fucking did it, didn't we, Hobbit?
Yeah. Barry George is the most retarded genius I've ever heard of.
You boys do know that Barry George jumped 3 double-deckers on a pair of roller skates, don't you?
I do know that, and I also know that there wasn't a scrap of evidence that he killed Jill Dando, but he still got banged up for a few years for it, didn't it?
There wasn't a scrap of evidence that he didn't do it either.
Oh. There's not a scrap of evidence that I didn't do it, but I'm not banged up for it.
Barry George was in the SAS, Ian Squibbs, and if he was to tell me he wasn't in the SAS, then I'd automatically believe that he was, because Barry George is a liar.
He was Freddie Mercury's cousin as well.
He's the most capable liar that I've ever met in my life.
Anyway, before we lose the thread of the story, we'll get back to dildos and things shortly. But okay then, my parents didn't know what to make of this, so they just moved on. Then a few months later, my mum was woken up in the middle of the night by my older sister Nadia asking if she could sleep in her bed. When my mum asked why,
Julia that said this to you.
No, it's someone called Susanna C.
It's not. That's Julia Sawalha from Press Gang, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Nadia Sawalha, weren't it? Do you remember Nadia Sawalha that used to be on Loose Women?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I've doxed your secret informant.
I told the girl. Anyway, when my mum asked why, she said, I told the girl that lives in my room that she could sleep in my bed because she was sad. My mum was confused and asked if I was talking about me, who was a baby at the time. Nadia said no, and that it was the little girl who lives in her room. My mum asked what the girl said, and Nadia said she didn't say anything. She just looked really sad, so I said she could sleep in my bed, and I could come up and sleep with you. And she floated up, and away, like she always does.
Ooh, up, and away.
Let's just say my mum had trouble sleeping that night. A few years later, after my sisters were born, it was almost Halloween, and my parents threw a grown-up party. They had my sisters and me stay with my grandparents that night, and one of my parents' friends was sleeping on the bottom bunk of our bunk bed in the house. He woke up in the middle of the night and saw a little girl in a nightgown with blonde pigtails just standing there staring at him. He said, "Oh, did you guys come home early? It's really late. Do you need your parents? They're in the room down the hall." She then turned around and left.
Oh, went down the hall.
Yeah, so something spooky going on there. The next morning, he asked my parents when my sisters got home, and they looked at him confused and said they're still at their grandparents'. So yeah, a bit fucked up there.
Ooh.
A few months later, same aunt told us our house was haunted, was left alone in the house one night, and she saw a young girl in a nightgown with pigtails walking around. She thought it was one of us, and we had come home early, but when she followed the girls all the way to the playroom, she disappeared. My aunt was terrified. The creepiest part is the similarities between these two stories. My mum never told my aunt about what her friend had seen, and my aunt still described a young girl with pigtails. Years later, I moved into the playroom myself. I was only there for a few weeks before I moved into Nadia's room because I was too scared to sleep. It felt like I was being watched all the time. Another odd thing that kept happening involved a bundle of sage that was given to us by a friend, which we kept in a drawer by the hallway. Every few weeks, we went to the playroom and we would find it on the windowsill. Last year, Nadia got out a Ouija board and we decided to do it in the playroom. Started the game right away and I felt unwanted. I felt extremely uncomfortable and I ended up having to leave the room. After the game, my sister explained that they had talked to the little ghost girl via the board. We found out her name was Madison and she used to live in the house. She said she was 4 years old when she died. We did some research on the house and we couldn't find anything about a girl named Madison, but the house did used to be the family home that was passed from daughter to daughter. Oddly enough, the previous owners had 4 daughters. We think that Madison came here, stayed for a few months, got sick and died. She may not have died in the house, but if she considered the house as her home, it would explain why she is here. We haven't really seen a lot of activity from her lately, just the usual tapping, knocking, and small objects moving around. There you are, eh?
It's strange with ghosts how, you know, it's because you never see naked ghosts. They got the clothes on, and in some cases they inhabit a house. Or in the case of that guy from the 70s, you know, he's there with his car, the ghostly apparition of the car as well.
Like props and everything, isn't he? Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see a ghostly dick, I must admit. So I'm happy that they do wear clothes. I wouldn't want to see that. I find that quite upsetting. Yeah.
I mean, they're spooky enough as it is, but you know, a naked one's just like
you know, put it away, mate. Come on.
That's beyond the pale. That is.
Maybe the ghost of John Barrowman, isn't it? He's been exposing himself apparently around set.
John Barrowman's dead.
Yeah. No, he's been exposing himself though. He's been do it when he's been doing.
So I've got another one for you. You've heard of Screaming Skulls, haven't you? So this is from Chiltern Canterlow in Somerset. So for over 200 years, the skull of Theophilus Brome has been kept at Higher Chiltern Farm. Tradition asserts that he requested that his head be preserved at the farmhouse near the church when he died in August 1670. Repeated attempts to inter the head have resulted in horrid noises heard throughout the farmhouse. In the 1860s, a sexton began to dig a hole to bury the head, but when his spade broke in 2 pieces, he declared he would never again attempt to act so evidently repugnant to the quiet of Brome's head. Brome was probably actively engaged in the Civil War and may have been given directions about the preservation of his head on account of the practice at the time of the restoration for the bodies of those who had been against the monarchy to be taken from their burial places and for the heads to be cut off and exhibited. During restoration of the church, Brome's tomb was opened and the skeleton found inside minus the head. It seems likely, therefore, that the head, or rather the skull, preserved in a special cabinet over a door in the hall at the farmhouse, is indeed that of Theophilus Brome.
How bizarre.
How bizarre, how bizarre. What else we got? I think I've got one of a girl ghost. What's this one?
I've got a couple of personal experiences. Going back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Well, first one was during my A-levels. I was doing a part-time job, and I hadn't experimented with psychedelics yet, so that can't be the explanation. But I was driving home through these kind of, darkly lit country roads, and drove up, and it was all sort of, no lights anywhere, but then there was like a lamppost on a corner, and there seemed to be this column of what I looked like condensed fog, but it was kind of like human shaped, and it seemed to drift in as I approached it. It seemed to drift towards the road, and for whatever reason, it came into the road, and I kept going, and I just drove right through it. I think part of me was thinking, "Oh, this is just a patch of mist," but it did look very human shaped, and I drove through it.
That when they go, we've spoken to psychologists, say, and psychologists say if you see something, it's your brain's going to go for the most outlandish explanation it can think of. But I think that's absolute bollocks, because your brain's
reversed.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Your brain's going to go for the most. Well, it's just a bit of smoke, isn't it, mate? That's literally what your brain's going to do, isn't it?
And then, well, I mean, your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, is definitely that's what it did. And I just sort of carried on going. I sort of seemed to drive through it, and it dissipated. But then I just thought, it must have been just a patch of fog. But I was kind of, in my mind, it was like, this is just, it was condensed into a human shape, and I suddenly felt very cold. Slammed on the brakes. And I got out of the car, and I started to walk back towards it. Like, what the hell was that? And then,
So asking for trouble, that is, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and then I basically shat myself and ran back to my car and drove home. And the second incident, that one, it's a bit weird. I couldn't quite explain it, but the second one I can very well explain. I was in East London working at a fizzy pop factory. I used to basically, I was quality control, so I used to test bottles from the line in the lab, and we'd have to go put some of these like sample bottles in this storage area for reference with the date on them and everything. So in case anyone said, someone's put acid in my bottle, you can pull one from the shelf and say, well, here's one from the same run, and this one's fine, or whatever,
Someone's done a dog dirt in this one.
Sorry?
Someone's done a dog dirt in this fizzy pop.
Exactly. That kind of claim. They try and get like free Pepsi for a year or whatever, or Tango or whatever it is. But I went into
when you've been tangoed.
I went into this back room, and it was like kind of like a corner of a warehouse, which was really dark, and it just had these kind of just all the shelving which you could put the bottles on. And I was feeling quite unwell at the time, so I went back into this dark room. I came out, and I was very pale because I was feeling unwell. And someone in the lab said, "Oh, you look like you've just seen a ghost." And I thought, well, I'm leaving soon, so I'm just going to roll with this. So I said to her, well, it's funny you should say that. I saw this guy with a clipboard in there, and I put the bottles on the shelf, and I looked, and he wasn't there, and I looked around, and I just made this silly story up. And she totally believed me, and within 15 minutes, pretty much everyone on shift was in the lab, coming to listen to my story about this ghost, which I just made up on the spot. And one of the guys on the other shift, apparently, who did sort of my equivalent job on a different shift, he refused to go take bottles out to that back room ever since then. And so that's kind of, that's just like the power. It was just amazing, the power of belief.
Oh, you evil fibber!
Yeah, it's just bullshit, and all these people believe me, which, you know.
Such vicious half-truths and tall tales. You're going to burn in hell forever.
I know people that have created ghost myths out of whole cloth as well.
Yeah, and it's just like half of these things are just kind of sheer bullshit. I mean, for me, it was just it was just in the moment. I'm just like, oh, fuck it, I'll go along with it, kind of thing. But some people do it just because, you know, for attention or whatever. You know, it just kind of, yeah. There's a kind of
some people like it.
Yeah, it's a reason to be skeptical.
Some people like to be the person that's seen a ghost, don't they? That's Derek there. He's seen a ghost, you know. There, some people like that, you know.
I can't believe there's people so jaded with society would do such an evil thing.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's just gonna tell tales to get attention. And
yeah.
Vicious.
And,
I would never do such a thing.
Yeah, you would never say a thing like you saw a mass in your room.
Oh well, I did.
Yeah.
Not the B. Is this like a Babylon B parody? I mean, how many levels of parody?
Oh, not the B is things which are real, but it sounds like parody.
Oh fuck! Doritos made this ad for the Mexican market where the dead guy's ghost comes back to tell his family he has a gay lover in heaven.
Oh yeah, that sounds like the sort of thing Doritos would do. That's nice,
isn't it?
The Twix
advert with the kid and the fucking the sexy goth
the tranny kid and the sexy goth GF who's pegging him, which is probably illegal because he looks underage to me. I'm not an expert in these matters, but I'm just saying that sort of relationship is inappropriate.
I just put ghost in as a search term, and it reminded me of South Park. Spooky ghost, spooky ghost.
Ghost. It was a ghost.
Treehouse of horror.
Ghost.
Ectoplasm. Anyway. That's what it is. Ectoplasm everywhere.
No, that wasn't me. That was a spooky ghost.
Ectoplasm.
That wasn't me. That was a spooky ghost.
Ghost.
Good old
anyway, do you want a spooky story?
Go on. Let's make it shit our pants.
All right then. This one will shit you up. So So you've got some clean underwear nearby because you're going to need it after this. Okay then. So again, this came through to someone. Someone wrote to me on my Twitter page, which I've had now for over a year, and a guy called Callum, and he gave me the following tale. It reads as follows. It was 13 years old. Had the most isolated bedroom imaginable. Mix that with a wild imagination, and I was often up late at night, scared and paranoid, and unable to fall asleep. My bedroom was on a separate floor of the house, on the opposite side to my parents' room. Okay.
Done too much weed, is that why?
Well, at that age, no. Just at 13, you don't do weed. They had no way of hearing what was going on in my room. It was seemingly an ordinary night, a bit of rain, but not a storm. I woke up and looked at my clock and saw that it was 2 a.m. I got an uncomfortable feeling right away, but I didn't know why. I then saw at the end of the bed there was a shadow of something roundish. My heart started racing until I realised it was just my hat. Sometimes hung my hat on one of the wooden poles at the end of my bed, so I calmed myself down and fell back to sleep. I woke up again about half an hour later, and again was startled by the sight of the shadow at the end of my bed. After my brain started to fully wake up, I remembered it was just my hat again. This process happened one more time that night, probably another half an hour later. Once again, I was startled by the sight of the shadow, and so on. I was getting thirsty, so I reached down my hand to the side of my bed looking for my water bottle. Instead, I found something else. My hat. That instant, I felt my heart drop to my stomach, and I almost fell out of my bed trying to turn on the lamp. The light revealed the face of a man peering over the edge of my bed right into my eyes. It let out the highest pitched scream I could produce and ran straight past the man down the stairs of my room. I felt the man trying to grab me, but I managed to open the door and run to my parents' room to get my dad. My dad got the baseball bat from under his bed and raced to my room, but he was too late. When we got back to my room, the window was wide open. Apparently the man jumped out onto the patio roof outside my window and was gone. The end.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hey.
Bum,
Oh,
and it
fuck
was
you
all
up,
a
wasn't it? Eh?
dream, or was it?
No, it was real. That was real. He thought it was a sap, but it wasn't.
They're the
Again,
best
it was.
creepypastas, aren't they? Oh, and it was all a dream, but I found
It was
the
all
lamp
a
on the side
dream.
of my bed.
Yeah.
Did you ever read the creepypastas, do you, Ian?
I've never read the creepypastas, but I can get the gist.
One of the earliest
They're like
creepypastas.
the shittest. They're like the shittest horror stories you ever read in your life.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I remember one which I thought was quite spooky, but then I read it out and it's like, hang on, this is bollocks. Remember when I did the Russian sleep experiment one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they go, but it was all a dream, or was it? That's how most of them end, doesn't it?
Oh, this one didn't. But hey, there's the thing. Maybe the Russian sleep experiment's based on the fact that when you go to sleep, you die, and that's it. Your life just lasts one day, and then the next day you've just got memories of that previous life. It wasn't your life. So maybe the Russian sleep experiment's to see how long humans can live. But that's the reason why humans should sleep, because otherwise they'll turn to demons that skin on each other alive. And that's why meth is the worst drug, because it'll make you stay awake for a long time, and then bad things happen. Whoa!
You need to sleep so the simulation can buffer, so it doesn't corrupt your last save.
Well, you know, like computers, if you leave them running for a while, they go out unstable, so you've got to reset them. So the sleep just resets stuff. Yeah, I think I might have come across something which is probably half true here.
So you're sort of switching yourself off and switching yourself back on again.
That's it.
Your printer's working.
So you guys ready for another story?
Oh, go on then. Shit us up this time then.
A macabre Scottish haunting was described by an avid collector of ghost stories, Richard Bovett, in his Pandemonium. One winter's night near Kinneil by the Firth of Forth, a man climbing a hill on his journey home saw before him 4 men carrying a coffin. Somewhat ill at ease, he turned off the highway onto a by-road and discovered to his horror that the ghostly cortege had also changed roads and was solemnly marching in front of him. With Alcasriti? Alcasriti? I've never heard of Alcasriti. He sped back to the high road, and so did the ghosts. He fled to the low road and found the ghosts were there too. Finally commending his soul to the deity who alone knew the significance of it all, he continued the rest of his journey along the high road, with the 4 ghosts bearing their spectral coffin proceeding before him at a set distance which never varied. He noticed whenever he slackened his pace, the ghosts followed suit. That when he increased his speed, the ghosts accelerated theirs. The macabre procession at length reached a little river spanned by a stone bridge, upon which the 4 ghosts reverently laid the coffin, leaving the poor man to no option but to walk over it as if he was to reach the other side. This was too much for flesh and blood to bear, so steeling himself for the ordeal, he lowered himself into the icy waters of the stream and waded across. When he looked back, he observed in the distance the 4 ghosts still carrying the coffin, slowly disappearing from view over the brow of a distant hill. The man hurried homewards, trembling with fear, but when he saw a light flickering in the darkness in front of him, his nerve finally gave way and he collapsed on the spot, quite unaware that this was a candle in the window of his own cottage. His wife dragged him into the house and asked him what had occurred, to which he replied, to use the words of the chronicler, that he knew of no cause, seeing that he found himself very well in his health all the day before, unless it was an apparition he saw by the way as he came home. Whatever the fuck that means. To the south of the border, so that's that one, I think. Yeah. So that's that.
What happened?
What
happened?
That's it. That's it.
Gotta be a punchline then.
Well, I don't know. He died, I think.
Yeah.
I think he just lost the plot.
That's how you know it's real. There is no punchline. It's open-ended and ambiguous. Ooh.
Oh, this is quite a good one. To the south of the border at Lumley, Chesterley Street, Durham, a man named Graham Fuller was working late at his mill one December night in 1680 when he received a ghastly visitor in the shape of a woman with dishevelled hair, covered in blood from 5 wounds in her head. With remarkable courage, he asked her what she wanted of him and was told that she was the ghost of Anne Walker and she had been murdered by a man named Sharp and his confederate, a relation of hers by whom she was pregnant. She had been attacked with a collier's pick, and this had afterwards been hidden under the bank of a moorland stream. The ghost asked Graham to report the matter to a magistrate at once. This placed Graham in a most unhappy dilemma, for he hardly liked to indict a man for murder for the evidence of a ghost, yet at the same time he was terrified of angering the dead woman. While still attempting to make up his mind, he received a further visit from the ghost, who looked exceedingly angry, and if anything more formidable than before. Even this was insufficient to force him to a decision, and it required a third visit to terrify him into a state of suitable acquiescence. He then reported the affair to a magistrate. The pickaxe was found in the place stated, and Sharp and his confederate Walker were arrested. The trial took place before Judge Davenport at Durham in August 1681, and although it was obvious from the start that Sharp was guilty, there was not a shred of evidence against Walker. Nevertheless, the judge summed up against both prisoners, and the jury found them guilty. They were sentenced to death that very night, and in spite of Walker's protests of innocence, were hanged, and the ghost thereby avenged. It was observed throughout the trial that the judge was extremely agitated, and many people believed that he had been by no means free and agent in giving his judgment, as the ghost of the murdered girl had appeared to him in his chambers demanding the sentence of death.
Go on, give him death, give him death. No, I don't want to. Give him death. I don't want it. Give him death.
You want to give him death, innit, mate? Hit me in the head with a pickaxe.
Go on, give him death. Give him death. Give him death. Oh, I don't want to. Give him death.
They should bring back the death penalty, shouldn't they? For sometimes.
For people who are murdered by for people who are indicted by ghosts. Apparently, I read a bit later on in that book, and it says that apparently there was a thing where if people were to be indicted by ghost, the judge would say, "And I call forth the witness of the ghost," and then if the ghost didn't appear, then they'd strike you, throw it out of court.
Weird.
Yeah.
For we are men of science, we are not men of faith.
Well, we are, yeah. I think science does come first, and we've got to take that into account when we're looking at these things.
Yeah,
we have to eliminate the
exactly where the ghost said it was. Then I don't know. Have you got to listen to the ghost?
We have to eliminate the impossible. We eliminate the impossible, and then we take the investigation forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I'll tell you what then. I'll tell you a creepy tale when you're ready.
Go on, ready when you are.
Right, okay. This one comes from a guy. Yeah, you ready?
Clean pair of pants on, Hobbit.
I have to replace the ones I got.
It comes from a guy.
This comes from a guy called. Yeah, this comes from a guy called Steve that I've been talking to on Twitter.
A guy called.
It's not. Is he transgender? Because it's not real otherwise.
He's just a regular guy.
That'd be Steve Etter.
Maybe. He's got a dick as far as I'm aware. So, but anyway, so this comes from a guy. This comes from a guy called Steve. So this was sent to me from him. He says the following.
Well, if it's a guy called Steve, then it's got to be kosher, isn't it?
God made Adam and Eve. Not Adam and Steve. Yeah. That's Richard Littlejohn. Anyway, so Steve said the following. Okay. My boyfriend and I decided to help my father move into my grandmother's house. My parents were going through a nasty divorce, and my mother had taken all of his money and sold the house. He was kicked out the day after the divorce and was announced. Well, that's what it says here. My mother tried to keep us from my dad by telling us how horrible and awful he was. Neither of us liked my mother, and she was a compulsive liar. So it was a no-brainer that we would help him with everything. So it was a no-brainer. So it was a JFK, basically. Right.
Ventilated.
No-brainer, a JFK. That's the Urban Dictionary for no-brainer. Yeah. All right, then. Okay, then. Easy decision.
Actually, the brain got substituted, didn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, when it got splattered across the boot of the car, didn't it?
Well, apparently the JFK brain got substituted, didn't it? The one that the autopsy was given wasn't the actual JFK brain; it was another brain.
Oh right, okay. But who was on the grassy knoll? We'll never know. Anyway,
he just went. He just went out for a drive to clear his head.
It was JFK, weren't it? It was JFK on the grassy knoll, weren't it? From Red, you remember Red Dwarf, don't you?
Yeah.
Who's Jeff K?
Jeff K.
Anyway, my grandmother's house was 3 bedrooms and a large basement with a crawl space and a storage room. My grandmother is the sweetest and kindest lady you would ever meet, and was super happy to have my dad living with her again. Yeah. My grandfather had recently passed away from cancer. He had essentially bled out of his intestines after they burst.
Oh,
yeah, that's how he died. We were all able to say goodbye to him, but it was still a horrible death. For months before he died,
bury the bodies.
Yeah, my 11-year-old cousin, my aunt, and I had nightmares about a large black figure coming to take my grandfather away.
Purple-Aki.
You see, Hobbit.
Purple-Aki.
Similar.
Yep.
No, similar to
yeah.
you had. That's what you had. That kind of apparition, wasn't it?
Purple-Aki.
In your bedroom. No, Purple-Aki was Candyman, wasn't he? So
would you say Purple-Aki 3 times in front of a mirror?
Yeah, and
no.
Purple-Aki is actually a real person, though. So
not when he's dead, he's not.
The figure was always in the basement and was always laughing menacingly. Whenever any of us would visit, he would avoid the basement unless someone else would come down with us. All 3 of us had paranormal experiences in the past, and we believed we are sensitive about these things. The thing in the basement terrified us more than anything. I had a similar nightmare the day after he passed. However, the figure already had my grandfather in his grasp. I hadn't been back to the house for about a year after he passed. The night before we went to the home to help my father move in, both my boyfriend, Steve's boyfriend, and I had a terrible nightmare about the basement and the figure in it. I can't describe the primal fear that was elicited from the laugh of the creature. We went nonetheless. We arrived around 10 a.m. and spent all day unpacking the moving truck and getting my dad settled. As we headed up the stairs, we heard laughing from the storage room. And we shat ourselves and legged it up to the kitchen. My grandmother heard the laughing and said, "Just ignore him, he'll go away." This made us even more nervous, especially when she wasn't able to elaborate. We were watching TV and getting ready to leave when we heard a loud bang in the basement, and my grandmother asked us to check it out. She was having trouble with her boiler and thought that's what had banged. My dad and my boyfriend and myself all went slowly down to the basement and very tentatively went to see what the issue was. We opened the door to see a mess. All of the boxes and jars in the storage room were tossed about, and in the middle of the room was an old-looking Ouija board. My dad grabbed my arm and pulled me back and shut the door as quickly as possible. He stormed upstairs and confronted my grandmother about why there was a Ouija board in her storage room. Apparently, she had been trying to contact my grandfather. She was seeing and hearing things that she thought were signs that he was trying to talk to her. So she got out the Ouija board that my dad and uncles used to use to try and talk to him. The only trouble was that my uncles and dad had terrible experiences with that board, and when they were in college, they had been hit, scratched, their room had been destroyed, and they had heard evil laughter. They had done the Ouija board in the exact room that it was in now. As he explained this,
good experience with a Ouija board.
No, and you shouldn't do Ouija boards. Only an idiot would do Ouija boards. You wouldn't catch me doing it.
You did one in
you wouldn't catch. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I did, didn't I? Anyway, no, yeah, well, you know.
Do as I say, not as I do, Ian.
To be fair, that ghost of man, right mess of your campsite. It was fucking crushed.
Did it fucking trash the place? There was ectoplasm. There was ectoplasm on the floor.
There was ectoplasm all over your girlfriend. The lot, weren't there? Ian?
Yeah.
Discarded cider cans.
Yeah.
In the new year. In the new year, we're going to try again, and we'll do the same thing. Yeah, we'll do it again in the new year. I'll go to. We're going to carry
the same thing and expect different results.
Hopefully, because we didn't get any
madness. That is.
Though there was evidence of the spirit. There's evidence of the spirits present the next day.
The spirits
didn't actually make
cider mainly.
Well, it was something. It did smell a bit.
Depth charge.
It would be good to make direct contact with the spirit through the board at the time and catch it on film.
I've got to say, this Emery Westerns is pretty close to fucking spirits, mate. You
anyway, okay.
You ain't tried Emery Western cider?
I will do.
This show is brought to you by Emery Western Cider, 8.2%.
Let me find Costco near me. Costco near me.
Anyway, we've almost finished the tale. So they've done the Ouija board in the exact room. As he explained this to us, we kept hearing things being tossed around.
Fancy doing a visit to Clop Hill Church?
Yeah, we could, and also Borley as well. Borley Church would be a good one. Be good to get some real time.
That's not
there,
isn't it? Isn't the site empty?
The site is still there.
Down and demolished, but the site's still there.
No, there's nothing there. But there's buildings around which were there before. There's the cottage. If you look at the cottage, actually, it's very similar. It looks very similar to the rectory, the actual style of the brickwork and that. So, but anyway, okay, we'll get on to that anyway. We'll just finish the story, then we'll.
You up?
He's gone anyway.
Visit to Borley. You come over to mine, and then I'll drive the rest.
Bollywood Rectory. Do I ever want to go visit Bollywood?
We can take the Ouija board and see what we can do. But anyway,
I'm up for forming a ghost hunting team. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'll bring some Bombay mix with me.
We could do a live 14 words, couldn't we? We could do a live one.
I was tempted to do a Fortean from a stone circle, but I was like, actually, you know what? Maybe not.
Or a stoned circle, if we got anything.
Yeah, because the Hobbit herb is partaken of there.
Me too, but me too.
To just loosen you up for the spirits, is it, Hobbit?
Well, the Hobbit herb is always like, Gandalf might be around, so you always got to have some.
Ganjadolf, more like.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too, but basically the doctor has had stern words with me lately, so I think that's. Yeah, I'm afraid so.
I'll have yours, that. Ian.
Yeah, you can have mine. Could eat mine though. I still need to look at eating it. But anyway, that's by the by. Anyway, back to the story. Anyway, I'll just finish the story, and then we can.
But you digest.
He said that he recognised the board. That one, that it was the one that they had burnt at the board over 35 years ago. My grandmother's face began to drop as she understood that this thing was definitely not my grandfather. We then saw a large black mass gather at the bottom of the basement steps and slowly rise towards us. We all scattered out of the various exits out of the house away from this thing.
Our license said 14 Live would be like a budget version of Ghostwatch.
You're right. You're right, fucking la. It'd be a piss up, wouldn't it, basically? Just a piss up. Anyway, grandmother was inconsolable because she finally realised this was not my grandfather, and because it felt like it wanted to do us harm. My grandmother has lived in this house 50 years or so and raised 3 boys there. She has never experienced evil that manifested itself like that. By 9 p.m. we were all tired and ready to go in the house and try to get my dad and grandmother settled in for bed so that me and my boyfriend could head off to a gay bar. We didn't have room enough in our apartment to bring them both home.
Well, it's because they do
to our place.
They're open to demons. Aren't they?
Live and let live. And we didn't want to live and leave them alone, so we decided they could stay together upstairs and we'd leave our phones on in case they needed us. Nice. We headed inside to the washroom.
When the going gets tough, the tough go pub. Is that what you're saying?
Tough. When the going gets tough, the tough take poppers. So we headed inside, and I went to the washroom. In my grandmother's house, there's a large teddy bear. That used to be my favourite toy when I was little. Was sitting above the medicine cabinet parallel to the toilet. As when I finished my shit, I heard a demonic sounding electronic laughter coming from the teddy bear that hadn't worked for over 20 years. I looked up towards the thing, absolutely terrified, and saw its head turn towards me suddenly. For reference...
He'd have been alright if he shit himself, wouldn't he?
The bear never ever moved. There were no animatronics in the bear to enable it to move. Even the stitching on the head of the bear should have made it impossible to move. I screamed as loud as I could above the noise of the laughter. And while the head kept turning side to side, I ran for it. I still had my trousers and underpants around my ankles and was shackled by them.
Himself.
Well, I think he'd finished himself.
Wiped his bum.
I still made it to the old oak door of the bathroom. Door had locked on its own and wouldn't budge no matter what I did to move the deadbolt. My boyfriend ended up breaking down the door with my dad. The teddy bear continued to laugh.
Battering ram? Did he have his dad in his arms and he was smashing his dad's head against the door?
Yeah. I think his boyfriend smashed him later.
He said he was breaking down the door with his dad. Does that mean he's like using his head
smashing the back doors in?
Battering ram. He's using his dad's head as a battering ram. That's what he was doing, money.
The teddy bear continued to laugh manically for about 20 minutes before my grandmother finally chucked it outside. My boyfriend and I got the heck out of there.
Nice.
And I don't think I will ever go back.
Just leave Dad and Nan to it. Fuck it, you guys. See you later. It's your house. Fuck it.
I called my aunt and told her everything that had happened. She told me that she had a nightmare the night before about the demon figure in the basement eating me alive. I told my dad about this, and he convinced my grandmother to contact the local parish to do a blessing at the home. I've had my fair share of experiences with the paranormal, but this thing was utterly evil and powerful. I am very concerned for my dad and grandmother's well-being, but there's nowhere else for them to go.
Not enough to stay there.
No.
Not enough cash. Well, I've got enough cash.
Just fuck off, but not enough to hang around.
His father was cleaned out once she cleaned him out. My father's divorce left him destitute, and my grandmother's son owns a home and refuses to sell it. From her reaction to the entity, I'd say this has been going on for a while. I believe she invited whatever it is in because she thought it was her husband. She may have even ignored everything, believing she was going crazy until we all experienced it with her. I had left her emotionally unstable, knowing that it is something else, not her husband. Meanwhile, my boyfriend and I are shaken a little from that experience. We can only hope it did not follow us home. The end. And there you go, see?
Screw you guys, I'm going home, as Cartman would say.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
They're going home to do each other, aren't they? Well, his mother and have a bit of cock and bum fun.
Guys, I'm going home.
Oh. It's more trouble than what it's worth.
It's probably just pink eye. They just need a topical cream, don't they?
And a KY jelly. Yeah. So.
I take it everyone missed that reference as well. South Park. Do you remember the zombie epidemic? The zombie epidemic, wasn't it? You know, he says pink eye. You just need a topical cream.
That was a good episode.
Yeah.
Quit screwing around. You guys are always screwing around. I think that's another episode. That's Craig versus someone else, isn't it? Craig versus Tweak, is it?
Oh, yeah, where they accuse them of being gay for each other because it's like, look, we found all this fan art of you being gay.
Right.
So there you go. I'm out of spooky stories myself, so someone else.
I can find one. I've got one about a succubus. Hobbit, have you got a spooky story?
Sorry, as you said you were all out of
spooky. I think you're going to follow up on the forest for us, Hobbit, because it was a Belgian.
I've got one about a chicken.
Well, you saying about the spooky stuff, and then I heard of something fall, and it was a piece of coal, and
Whoa.
I've got one about Highgate and a chicken.
That's not Highgate, it's somewhere else. It's John Frost Square.
It's Pond Square, just north of Highgate. Oh, yeah, have you covered this one?
No, I just know the story, that's all.
Okay.
Because it was in the Reader's Digest Big Book of the Unexplained that I used to enjoy when I was a child.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want me to go through it?
Yeah, you can do it if you want.
Okay, well, during World War II, the apparition of a chicken was seen several times. One night in 1943, aircraftsman Terence Long was crossing the square and reported hearing the sound of horses' hooves, turning wheels and a screeching noise. He turned expecting to see a horse-drawn carriage or cart, but was surprised to see a half-plucked chicken flapping its wings and going around in a circle before vanishing. Air raid wardens were said to have seen it several times in the square, and one day it had vanished through a brick wall. In January 1969, a large white half-plucked bird was seen by a motorist suffering car problems at Pond Square. Fearful that the bird may be hemmed in and in need of help, he approached, only to have it disappear. In February 1970, a couple were kissing each other goodnight when the ghostly white half-plucked chicken landed beside them, ran 2 circles and then vanished. And it's been suggested that the ghost of the first frozen chicken has been haunting the pond since the 17th century. And apparently it's the first frozen chicken because it's linked to Sir Francis Bacon. He was in a coach heading towards Highgate. Snow was on the ground, and he thought, and he just had a thought that because at the time preserving meat, I mean this is 1626, but they used to preserve meat in salt, and he thought, well, what if he had this idea? What if we could preserve meat with snow? So he decided they'll stop the coach at once. He went into some poor woman's house, bought a hen off her, made her gut it, and then he stuffed the body with snow. And apparently the snow chilled him, and he felt ill, and he his house, because he was too far from his own, where they put him up, in a warm bed, but it's so damp that he died 2 or 3 days later. Apparently, he died of suffocation or something, or as they say in the Times. But yeah, so this ghostly chicken was one of Sir Francis Bacon's experiments shortly before he died.
Weird.
Paranormal and history.
He caught his death
paranormal
cold.
all in one.
So
Weird tale.
What is it? Do you want to hear about a succubus?
Yeah, go for it.
Richard Bovett, a devout believer in apparitions of every kind, recorded a tale about 2 succubi which he heard from a family of his acquaintance. One night during supper, a footman complained of a severe headache and was permitted to retire to his room. Later in the evening, when the remainder of the household were on their way to bed, someone noticed what appeared to be a thick mist pouring from the footman's bedroom. They entered the room where an amazing sight set their eyes. The footman was stretched naked upon his bed, while his shirt lay in a far corner of the room. His hair stood on end, his hands were clenched, and he was in a violent sweat, while his eyes stared at something he alone could see at the side of his bed. After half an hour, he recovered consciousness and described what must have been a truly terrifying ordeal. Shortly after entering his room, while composing himself for sleep, he had seen a glow like daylight, in the midst of which appeared 2 beautiful women who brazenly entered the bed on either side of him. This was too much. The footman, determined to preserve his virtue at all costs, struck out wildly at the intruders, but discovered to his consternation that his fists met only empty air. The women then whipped the bedclothes from the bed and commenced the assault. They next tore off his shirt, and such was their ferocity that the poor man was in terror, in case he should die under their violences. Finally, he lost the power of speech and sank back exhausted, in which condition he was found. His body was badly bruised, but after a good night's rest and bloodletting in the morning, he had a complete recovery.
Wow.
Yeah, poor bloke. Poor bloke had to have sex with 2 women in his dreams. What a poor bastard, isn't he?
What a nightmare.
Wait,
Awful.
worse than death, that is.
Yeah. Hobbit,
Just
you can
ask.
do this Wood story then.
What wood story?
The Ojan one. In Halloween horror stories.
Thought we just had the wood story. I would have had wood. I would have had wood in that position. Hey, get it?
The Diogen, or the Eyes,
Yeah.
is a ghost story that's said to haunt the Sonian forest in Oh, yeah, because this is about Diogen. Les yeux. Diogen must be Flemish. Often seen in fog form and followed by smaller shadow figures. The story, which is based on... I've seen some beautiful purple mushrooms when I was in Belgium. It's based on a series of true events. It has become more of a campfire tale or urban legend, with virtually no sightings in recent years. Geralt would be good at reading this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
According to the book, he said, "Oh, I thought I wasn't allowed on Fortean words." And I was like, "Well, what gave you that idea?"
No.
Oh, okay.
He gets too drunk.
Yeah, I didn't understand him towards the end of Tuesday's show. According to the book, Die Kinderen van het Beerzenenbos.
Oh god, that is Flemish, isn't it? I'll take it Flemish is like Dutch then, isn't it?
It's like Dutch, but not quite. I've been finding out there's actually a fair bit of difference between the two.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was written in 1937. The legend of Diogen is said to have begun when area nuns of that area.
It's like an area manager.
I'll have to
When
speak to the area.
The area cannons. I want to speak to your area bishop, please.
Where's the Mother Superior? I want to speak to your manageress.
The nuns that took a bath together that say, "Where's the soap?"
So the nuns did a forest.
Hobbit still doesn't get that joke.
That's not a very good joke either.
Where's the soap?
It's
fucking
so
funny.
it just doesn't make sense.
It does, doesn't it?
It's one of the funniest jokes ever written.
Once it clicks, it makes
Here's
sense.
the soap.
It's on par with the joke of what's the difference between a hormone and a vitamin. Well, you can make a hormone, but you can't make a vitamin.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's better than that. It's better than that. It's better than that.
How do you get down off an elephant? You can't. You get down off a duck.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, the area nuns, which were in the area, being nuns, nunning it up in the forest, said
We're in the soap.
that they found some burned bodies of young children in the Solian forest near Bruxelles, or Brussels, as the Flemish would call it.
Yeah.
It is said in the book that 80 children were murdered and the bodies dumped throughout the forest and set ablaze, but a more accepted number was only 8. Was it 8 or 80?
Are we guessing that a certain tribe actually told us about this story?
I get a feeling like, well, if it's good enough for Poland, it's good enough for Belgium.
Yeah.
So it's it's a number between 8 and 80. Very little is known of the case, excepting that which is found in the book, which is believed by many to have been a work of fiction. Yeah, the Dutch are scum. So the description, a greenish ghost-like fog is often seen, and small black solid figures are said to dart across the road, causing cars to go off the road. It's Le Schtroumpf.
Yeah.
Le Schtroumpf, it's like the cars are the work of Gargamel, according to them. Yeah. A laughing child is often heard as the mist evaporates. No, it's the theme tune. La, 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 la. Anyway, on the other occasions, it is said that a bloody palm print is seen on the car's window, only soon to disappear as mysterious as it appears. Just again about the Schtroumpfs. Why is it that Papa Smurf wears a red Phrygian cap? What's that about? Earlier descriptions.
Why is there only one female Smurf? I mean, do they all take turns on her or what?
She was created by Gargamel to try and cause division amongst the Smurfs.
Are you saying Gargamel is the serpent from the Bible of old?
I'm saying that the Smurfs are a strange story, not quite related to the Sonian forest. On other occasions, yeah. Well, they do. They're a very egalitarian society there. So, a laughing child is often heard as the mist evaporates. That's a bit different to say like the crying child, which is seen at the burned down houses in England.
Yeah.
On other occasions, it is said that bloody palm print is seen on the car's window, only to soon disappear as mysteriously as it appears.
I saw one similar to this in America, where there's a level crossing where supposedly a busload of children got hit by a train, and if you park your train on the tracks, then the ghosts of the children will push you through. They even palm print. So if you've got a really dirty car, the palm prints will appear in the dust on the back of your car when they push it over. Yeah, they won't allow you to park there.
So earlier descriptions of the fog would have it as being grey, orange, or white in colour, followed by the childish laughter.
So there's a figure of between 8 and 80 dead children, and the fog somewhere between green and orange.
Or grey. Sometimes white. Yeah. The term
this is getting more real by the second, doesn't it?
It's not one of the more famous Belgian stories. The term die Augen, Dutch for the eyes, originate from reports that something large was said to have been staring at witnesses from within the fog. Possible explanations with an X.
Yeah.
Shadow figures have been Shadow figures have still been reported seen running in front of cars, driving through the forest on very rare occasions? No, just occasion. Along with the bloody hand of a child on the back side of a car window. Practical jokers have been seen, though, touching the windows of cars entering the forest. The shadow figures are believed to be that of a wild boar, which has been known to roam the forest.
Wild boar, children, they're all the same thing, aren't they?
Orange, grey, white.
Well, I mean, when have you ever seen a wild boar and not mistaken it for a child, Hobbit?
Oh, it happens all the time, innit? Wild boar, child, wild boar. Easily mistaken.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Damien, I think we might have actually done the story of the green children in Suffolk.
That was one of Zero's favourites, the two green children.
Not to be confused with Two Bad Mice.
I think that might be
We Are Two Bad Mice.
Is it Mysterious Visitors episode? I think it might have been in that episode.
Rat Pack, we are two bad mice. Two bad mice. We are two bad mice.
Right, are we all done now, lads?
I think we've done it.
We're all spooked out, are we now?
He's done. Yeah.
Spooky.
Nightmares.
I need to go and shit my pants. That's what I need.
Yeah, don't soil the bed tonight, everyone.
Yeah.
Gotta want a nappy for this one.
I'll remember.
Fuckers.
Stay spooky.
Play the theme tune, the new theme tune. Woo.
I will do. I need to do a reinstall.
Oh yeah. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Anyway, right. That's.
We will talk about John Hutchinson. That is coming. There is going to be an episode about John Hutchinson, the Hutchinson effect.
I did have one about. I'll have to mention it next week. But I did find one where they talk about the burning of Crystal Palace. Palace being on flames during the Great Fire of London.
An episode on Michael Hutchins as well.
He died wanking on the back.
Door wanker.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, that's me. Night all.
I'm in a softie.